No time, Pads. Drop his hand, Pads. Drop it, Pads. Yes.
That's me in the red boots. Football was the dream growing up, but when I found out it wasn't going to pay the bills, I knew I needed to shift focus. Rewind time to early 2023 and the YouTube algorithm spits out a random poker video. One click later, I'm tumbling down the rabbit hole, binging the likes of Brad Owen and asking myself, if he can crush it, why can't I? Why can't you? Poker stopped being just a game, it became the next challenge, even if it's just part-time for now. What is happening, people? We just finished up at the gym. It's around 6:30 p.m. We've got an hour drive to the casino. I had my most advanced session to date with my coach yesterday, talking exactly about when to go for it on the river. So hopefully in today's session, there won't be any bottling it on the river. The aim is to play far more aggressively. I will see you at the tables. Yes, my dogs, welcome back to Road to Vegas. Covering 3 sessions today, last of which is the main event. 11 minutes into our first session though, we pick up blackjacks in the small blind and face an early position limp and a button squeeze to £9. So it's a mandatory 3-bet when action is back on us. I go to 35. Only the button calls and we go out of position, heads up to the flop, which comes Queen 10-7 rainbow. I check and he bets 30 into 74. Nothing to do but make the call here with second pair. 9 of diamonds on the turn makes us open-ended, which is nice, but I still check, hoping for check back, but instead we are faced with a just over half pot barrel sending me into the tank. Well, we block and match King Jack for the nuts. Should I just rip it? Or at least that's what my alter ego is thinking, because my style is honestly not quite that wild. I simply just don't see many bluffs here from our opponent and how we can be good. So we would be calling to chase the draw essentially, and we are not getting a very good price. On top of that, it would be a one-liner if it comes through, so it would be hard to get paid. I tap the table and let it go for those reasons. We move. Nice hand. It's been over 2 hours since the last significant hand. Since then, we've added 100 quid to our stack, and now we pick up ace king on the button. The action kicks off with a limp from the +2, another limp from the low jack, and now Cutoff decides to raise it up to £15. Perfect spot for me to 3-bet in position. I size it to 45, hoping to isolate or take it down pre-flop, but surprisingly +2 cold calls to 45 and the cutoff comes along as well. We go 3 ways in position with £140 in the pot to the flop, which comes Jack 4-4 2 hearts. Not exactly the dream, but it is a fairly disconnected spot to represent strength. So when both opponents check to me, I decide to c-bet, looking to barrel on overcards and bricks if only one continues. I bet 45, +2 makes the call and the cutoff gets out of the way. So we do go heads up to the turn with £230 in the pot versus a range that limped in pre. The turn is a beautiful king of spades, giving me top pair, top kicker, under the gun, +2 checks. He only has just over a half pot bet behind. I decide to bet third pot to ultimately just get value from Jack X and the draws in his range. After a very brief pause though, he decides to let it go. About half hour later, we pick up ace 9 of hearts, which I open from the low jack with the straddle on to £15, and we end up going 6 ways to 10 queen 5 rainbow 1 heart. It actually ends up checking all the way through though, and now the turn is a good one. Ace of diamonds checks to me and I bet 25. Only the button and small blind make the call, so going 3 ways to a blank. 6 of clubs river checks to me. I consider another bet for thin value but decide to just check back. Button checks back and we find out we are good. In retrospect, I probably would have heard from one of them on the turn if they had a better hand, unless they had a hand like ace jack. Overall, prob should be betting again there on the river, but let me know your thoughts. We move. We play for another 2.5 hours with nothing worth a mention for the vlog before wrapping it up. Yeah, not really the most exciting session. Let's move on to the next one. That one's out of the way, that one's done. let's move forward. We made a profit, which is great. I'll see you in the next one. About an hour into our session, we are looking down at 2 black kings. Action goes +2 limp, low jack limp, and then a raise to 22 from the hijack on a table I have no info on. It's a mandatory squeeze when it's back on me, and I go to 80 quid. Low jack now, surprisingly, limp jams his remaining £65 stack, and hijack calls as well. Going to the flop with £230 in the pot and an SBR of just over 1. It comes 6, 7, 9 rainbow. I check out a position, and hijack unfortunately checks back. Turn is the 6 of spades, and now it's time to send in the invoice. I just hope hijack was trapping an overpair on the flop. To cover it, I bet 1/3, which he calls pretty quickly. River is the 9 of spades, so I'm pretty confident he has an overpair. I simply think there is nothing to do but jam and hope our flop check will make him call. So we jam. Hijack goes into the tank, shaking his head and deliberating his decision, and ends up Fast forward 50 minutes and we are in the +1 with pocket 8s, which I open to 8 quid, and the cutoff, who's sitting with 500 behind, 3 bets us to 21. Nothing to do but call and set mine. Flop comes 3, 2, 4 rainbow. I check as standard to the aggressor, who fires 25 into 45. I just have to hope he's bluffing. It's simply too weak to fold. I make the call, and the turn brings the king of clubs, which is about the worst card we could see. I check again, and we are done with it after his £35 bet. He flashes his pocket aces. Nice hand, so we move. It's been a pretty slow grind so far. Just under 2 hours later, we are in the cutoff with ace king off, and the action starts with the undergun straddling for 5, low jack calls, and now I raise it up to 20. The button cold calls, and then out of nowhere, the small blind decides it's time to go all in for his remaining £140. Now, this player wasn't running too well, so I sensed he could be getting frustrated and jamming wider than he usually would. So with ace-king, when it's back on us, I don't think we can fold here. I rip it all in myself for £530 to isolate. The button sure enough folds, and we are heads up for the remaining of the hand. The flop comes 8, 3, 5, 2 spades. Not the best, but not the worst either. The turn is the 7 of diamonds. We don't improve, and the river is the 4 of hearts. Just hoping we are good here. I show my ace king, and we are. The small blind doesn't even bother showing the hand. He mucks, and that is it for him.
Heads up. 7.
So that session, we basically just waited for a good hand, free bet, and then we'd run well against our opponent, and that's how we made our profit today of £315. We just need to keep doing what we're doing, keep improving. Road to Vegas, getting closer. All right, so moving straight on to the main event, session 3, kicking off here at 7:30 p.m. with the big slick. I raise to 8 out of the +2, and now low jack sitting with £350. We cover him, and I perceive him to be a recreational. He decides now to 3-bet to 25, and it folds back around to us, and I decide between 4-betting, lowering the SBR, or just calling and keeping the SBR high and maximizing our maneuverability, which I think is a good idea if we believe we have an edge on this guy. So I decide to just make the call here. He could even end up value owning himself with a worse ace, and the flop comes 10, queen 10, 2 clubs out of position. I decide to just check, and he checks back, which I love to see. It tells me he hasn't really got anything on here, so I think on a lot of turns I'm gonna start a story, especially on the 2 of hearts. So I load the gun with a bet of 30 into 53, and he makes the call. And now the river, I think, just needs to be a brick, or a club would be okay as well. We can definitely rep clubs here. It is the 6 of clubs. We're gonna have more flushes in our range, but I do for some reason decide to, no, I'm joking. We bet 110 into 113. Thank God we're not being a pussy for once, and we put in a bet which I like, regardless of the result, guys, regardless of the result. But he does go into the tank for around a minute, and eventually finds the fold. Let's go. Playing better poker here than I usually do, and we get rewarded less.
There's a lot of limping and a lot of limp calling.
Get the ill style and this shit go boom.
Moving on to the next hand, we pick up pocket eights in the hijack. I raised to 8 standard open sizing, button calls, who I think is a recreational, and then small blind calls as well, who I think is the most competent player on the table. Anyway, 3 ways we go in middle position to 4-6-2 rainbow. Very nice. Checks to us. We have an overpair, and on this board I want to bet for protection and value, deny equity from overcards. I bet 10 into 26, pretty standard I think. Button now decides to raise to 25. Still happy to call his raise here until small blind decides to 3-bet to 60. I just, so rarely a bluff. I am probably 50-50, but I just think we can fold. And I do decide to fold, and later actually find out that we were ahead of both players. Small blind was getting out of line. Button had, I think, a 6. But yeah, I think most of the time it is a good fold. I don't know what to say about this one. We just move. All right, here we go. This session is about to take a turn. We are in the +2 with ace jack of clubs. I open to 8, and we get one caller from the button, who has recently sat down with a £250 stack. We go heads up, out of position to a very nice flop. King 6 jack 2 clubs. I check out position, and he decides to bet 7. I call, and the turn is a beautiful 7 of clubs. I check again, and he decides to bet again. 15, half pot. I think I need to raise now. Try play for stacks if possible. I raised to 55, and it is fantastic news. He decides to call. We are praying for a non-club action killing river. The poker gods oblige with our wishes when it is the 10 of hearts. I decide to go for it all. I'm all in. Maybe this is just far too greedy though. He does think about it and eventually makes the call. This is absolutely huge. We've got all the chips in, and boy, we got lucky on the turn when he flips over pocket 7s. I don't know whether the overbet there on the river is the best play. I think we might have got lucky to receive the call, but yeah, we'll take it. We move with a much bigger stack. Moving along to queens in the small blind, sitting with £630 now. The straddle is on those, so we are just over 100 big blinds deep, and +2 now raises to 15. Low jack calls, and we love it. It folds back round to us, and a perfect squeeze spot. I go to 80, and surprisingly the straddler calls. The rest fold out, and we go heads up out of position to 888. We have the range advantage on this board, of course. I just check though our position, and he decides to check back. 6 of clubs on the turn, and now I want to put money into the middle. I think his range literally consists of lower pocket pairs, which he would have checked back on the flop, or he has ace king. I think those are his combo of hands, but I decide to get a little bit greedy and bet 125, targeting lower pocket pairs. And I think it's a shame because I don't get value for ace king with this sizing, which to be honest is probably what he has a larger percentage of the time when he checks back flop, because players tend to underprotect their check back range. But that being said though, he does go into the tank and eventually folds. So yeah, ace king was probably what he had anyway. Should have probably gone for 25% to 33% sizing there on the turn, and then go for the jam on the river if it's not an ace or a king. Still good to take it down. Run good continues. On to the next one, where the straddle is on. There are 2 limpers in the field before the action folds to us. At the bottom of our range here with king jack off, I raised to 25. I think £5 too short. £30 would have been ideal, but we get 1, 2, 3 callers, 2 cold callers, and the original limper calls as well. So we're going 4 ways to the flop, where we need some help, but it comes 5, 9, 4, 2 hearts, and it at least checks to us, but without a heart in our hand, I think we just want to check back and hope to improve, and we do. On the jack of clubs turn, it checks to the +1 now, who leads for 25. Happy to call, but I think we can also raise, and raise is what I do. I go to 60 to fold out any draws, and we do fold out the other two, and +2 comes along for the ride to the river, which is the 7 of clubs. I think it's pretty clean. 10-8 is now a straight, but I don't think he should have offsuit combos of those. He checks to me, and we know players under trap on the river. Do we go for thin value here? I think we can. Don't know if I want to jam and try get all of his chips. I think we're trying to get called by Queen Jack, 10 Jack, but I decided to just check this one back and not reopen the action. We are indeed good. He had Queen 10 off. He weren't going to call with that hand anyway, but that is besides the point. Do we bet for thin value here? Do let me know. We upgrade now to pocket kings in the big blind. The straddle is unfortunately not on, but +1 limps, +2 limps, and now the low jack, the competent player at the table, raises to 15, and it folds round to us on the big blind, and an easy squeeze spot. I go to 60, the limpers fold, and the low jack original raiser calls, and we go heads up out of position to 3 jack queen to clubs out of position. I'm just going to check here, and low jack decides to check back, which in my experience tells me he probably doesn't have a draw Queen X, so he's probably limited to Jack X or a lower pocket pair, or at least that's what I think. The turn is the Queen of Diamonds, so now even less likely he has Queen X. I think we need to put money in the pot now, so I bet 33% pot, trying to target hands like Jack X and lower pocket pairs, maybe even Ace King, although we do block that. He does decide to call, and the river is a brick. The 4 spades definitely can put money in again. Nothing's changed. We're targeting the same group of hands, so can't bet too big considering what we're targeting. I don't think we can easily rep a queen, so we don't want to be betting too big here. I bet 100 into 205, and he does go into the tang, but eventually decides to fold. And we take another decent pot down. Moving on, the straddle is back on. There's a +2 call, and it folds to us on the button. With ace jack off, I raise to 20. I would prefer 25. And now big blind cold calls, the straddler calls, and the +2 calls. So we go 4 ways to a decent but very wet flop. Queen 9 8, 2 hearts checks to us. I wouldn't like to bet and get raised. We have decent equity here to just peel 1 on the turn, and it is a 10 of hearts. And now it checks to the +2, who bets 25. We have upgraded to a straight, and we have potential to make a straight flush. So I just call, and big blind raises to 100. +1 is out there, +2 calls, and we are so deep with the big blind that if we bink our king of hearts or 8 of hearts, this could be the most lucrative hand that we've ever played. I just make the call. And the 9 of clubs on the river is not great. Pairing the board, checks to me. I think we can just check back and be good here sometimes, so that's what I do. But big blind has king jack. I bet a straight, nice hand. We move. We pick up ace queen off next. In the hijack, I raise to 15. The straddle is on, the button calls, and the straddler calls. We go 3 ways in middle position to 7, 2 ace, 2 hearts checks to me. I'm just going to check this one back on this pretty dry board. I mean, we hold the queen of hearts, so less likely our opponents have heart combos as well. So yeah, very dry board. I check this one, button checks back, and the 2 of clubs is very nice. Under the gun, +1 checks, and now time to put money in the pot. I bet half pot, and button gets out of the way, but +1 sticks around with a call. The 3 of hearts comes in on the river, completing the flush, but he checks, and very happy to bet. I bet half pot again. He makes the call, and we are good. 3.5 hours into the session, we pick up pocket 7s. The +1 has limped, and we end the +2. I raise to 12, and the hijack cold calls in the field, and the original limper calls as well. So we go 3 ways in middle position to 9, 5, 7, all of clubs, and it checks to me. I decide to just check here. Hijack checks back, and the turn improves us further. We boat up on the 5 of hearts. Now +1 leads out, which we love to see. I am just going to call though to keep hijack in the hand, and now hoping for a club to try to get value from flushes. It is a 2 of diamonds though, and +1 Unfortunately, checks. Looks like he's given up, but we haven't. I bet 35 into 84. Hijack folds and +1 folds. We tried to get as much as possible here, but we'll take it. Unfortunately, guys, I didn't get the footage for this hand due to not expecting to play this hand. I forgot to press record, but it ended up being a significant one, as you will see. So let's go through it. Action folds all the way to the cutoff, who limps in for £2, and I think the cutoff limp ranges are going to be super wide. So on the button, next to act, I raise to 10 with 9-8 off, and we get a call from everyone remaining in the hand, which is not ideal. Going 4 ways to the flop, it comes 2-8, 5, 2 hearts. Not bad at all. Checks to us, and it's a standard spot for a c-bet. Got to protect the hand and get some value, so I go 15 into 40. Then the recreational player, sitting on my direct left with around £340 behind, decides to spice things up with a raise to £40. Big blind calls too. Cutoff is out of the way, and now it's on me. I start contemplating a fold because we are probably not ahead of his raise. He's getting great odds to just flat call with his draws, and we're multi-way, but instead of doing the sensible thing, I call anyway. Why? Maybe I'm riding the high of positive tilt, but boom, the turn is the 9 of clubs, and we improve the 2 pair, so we easily forget about that mistake. The rec now barrels 60 quid. Big blind folds, and I just call as I don't put him on a draw, but I didn't bother thinking he might be putting me on a draw, which is probably my mistake with just calling, especially when blocking sets to Queen of Spades on the river. He bets 75. I tank for a little bit and decide to just call, and we get shown he got coolered with 8-5 off, flopping 2 pair. We got lucky due to our bad play and decide after this to play for a couple more orbits before wrapping up this godly 4-hour session.
What's happening, people? We are treating ourselves to some food. We've just had the most profitable session to date playing cash. In for 395, out for 1,155. Wow, I was not expecting it today, but we ran extremely well. Didn't make too many mistakes either, other than the 7s hand where we flopped the set, turned the boat, got led into by a pre-flop raise, I believe. I should be raising when he bets there on the turn to charge their flush draws. But I think other than that hand, I think played pretty much every other hand pretty well. Followed our strategy, the strategy that me and my coach have gone over. I'm trying to follow that to the T. I've been swaying away from it, and I've been getting told off by my coach in my recent vlogs. So I'm just trying to get back to basics, get back to the strategy that we've been talking about in our sessions. But yeah, today it served us well. I'm just super stoked with today's result. It's a huge progress towards Road to Vegas. And then we've got the tournament in Malta. We made our decision. We're gonna go out there with the boys. Imagine a final table. No. I'm getting ahead of myself. I don't even mess with tournaments. I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited, guys. Poker's going well. I feel like we're moving in the right direction, guys. We just gotta keep going. And I hope you're taking value from this journey. I hope you're gaining, if you're new to the game, hopefully you can see how I've struggled, and I'm still struggling. You always struggle, you're always trying to improve, but you stick to it and the results will follow. But you've got to trust the process, you've got to find a strategy, and you've got to stick to that. It's important you listen to someone who's better than you. Also, if you're learning the game, I think, a wise poker player told me, don't listen to too many voices. It's important to, if you have a coach, just listen to that coach, because otherwise you're going to have 2 different voices, going to mess up. Because one voice will tell you one strategy, the other one might tell you another strategy, and then there will be some contradiction there. It's easier to keep things simple. Listen to one voice. If you're enjoying the journey, hit the subscribe button, help out the channel. But yeah, guys, I'm starving. Get this food down me, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.